Welcome back to Pillow Talk. I'm Christian.
And I'm Libby.
Today we are going to talk about our daughter Elliot's birth story.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who do not know, we have a 22-month-old daughter who, quite frankly, was a surprise.
A good surprise.
A great surprise. But a surprise nonetheless. We were not planning on having children. As much as Libby wanted a child as early as possible, I did not. And
however, it was perfect timing because if we were the type that planned it out, it would have not happened for a very long time in
yes.
Christian's book.
Yeah, and some of that was just not knowing what to expect, not knowing if I could handle it, you know, the typical, oh my God, I'm going to be a parent thoughts that you have. But Libby had always said she wanted a child before she was 25. And I was like, no freaking way. I said, maybe by the time I'm 30, which I just turned 30.
Okay, you would have been 28 when I was 25, so.
Right, but that was still 2 years earlier than in my head I had planned on having kids. And sure enough, Libby got her child almost 3 weeks.
You make it sound like I was like being sneaky about it, but that is not the case at all.
But you had your child 3 weeks before you turned 25.
Yes.
Coincidence? I think not. So the story starts on Labor Day 2019. Not that that's a typically memorable day of the year, but I remember waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and Libby decided to take a pregnancy test. And
well, hold on. I had already been up, and the reason I even thought to take a pregnancy test, that weekend we were in Kansas City with siblings, and we were having a good time, having some beverages, and just
like a beverage, let's clarify.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, we were having a good time, and then it just hit me that I hadn't had my monthly thing.
We were in Kansas City a couple weeks prior to that also, and you were sick the whole time we were at a Shawn Mendes and Alessia Cara concert.
Yeah.
And you were literally sick the whole time, and we had to go back down there for work.
We have no idea if it was pregnancy related or not.
My brothers and I were doing a project for a client down there, and so we get back, and 6 a.m., I just woke up. I had to work that morning, so I normally would have gotten up at 7, and Libby takes a pregnancy test and comes back into the room, and she said, I think it's positive. And I said, and I quote, well, what the fuck does that mean? I went back to sleep for an hour.
I did not go back to sleep.
For an hour.
I took 3 more pregnancy tests.
And when I came home on my lunch break that day, it was more than 3. I think there were 5 total.
I don't know.
With a little sign that said, I think you're going to be a dad. And
I had to try and make it special somehow,
but I wasn't even sure how to process it. I wasn't sure if it was real. I wasn't sure if I was in a dream or a nightmare, or if Libby had just gone completely off the rails and was just losing her marbles. And sure enough, she called the doctor to go get her blood work done to confirm the pregnancy. And I remember we hadn't got the call yet, and you had to call them shortly before they closed. And they're like, oh, yeah, that came back as a positive. And Libby goes, oh. And I think they said something like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And we were just kind of like, what? Because at this point, we had lived in our new house we hadn't even moved. Yeah, we had.
Yeah, we had.
We lived here for about a year. We just got our second dog a couple months prior because, again, we weren't expecting that. So all of a sudden, this house that we had just bought started to renovate. We had to change one of the bedrooms for like the 4th time to a nursery, and we had to kind of just figure out all sorts of things that we are now processing again, expecting our second child.
On purpose this time.
Correct. If you haven't heard that episode, that was the episode prior to this, and we talk all about expecting our second child after everything that we've gone through on this pregnancy journey. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. But we are expecting a second baby girl in August. Back to the child that we have already. Everything for the most part was pretty normal for that pregnancy compared to this one. And
we had a couple scares just because I didn't know what to expect or what was normal. And I was having some pain and stuff that I was freaked out about. So we had early ultrasound, but everything was fine.
My best advice to give anyone who is expecting a child is to find a doctor or a care team that you really trust and you really are comfortable with, because I cannot tell you how many times Libby has reached out via email, via the chat messenger thing that they use, or even to just call the office. You have to be comfortable with these people because, one, you're in a pretty exposed position, maybe pun intended, anytime for this stuff, but also they know what they're talking about. If you think something's off, they can probably explain it. And if they can't, they will have you come in so they can check, they can make sure everything's good, and they can monitor. Again, with our past, she's getting extra monitoring this time, and she's a little bit more comfortable than the first pregnancy because she knows a little bit what to expect. But that was almost 2 years ago. And she's still like, man, I don't remember any of this. I don't remember what I was feeling. I don't remember what aches and pains were happening. And obviously, here I am, I don't know anything that's going on. So anytime she says something hurts, that something's wrong, I immediately assume the worst. And I'm like, do we need to go to the hospital? Like, I don't know.
Part of that's our traumatic experiences prior to this pregnancy.
Yes, and some of that's just anxiety in general. And I remember a lot of that the first time, but the first time it seemed significantly less real until Elliot was born. This time I can kind of, for me.
Okay.
And
Fair.
this time around, I kind of know more what to expect. And so it's a little bit more difficult to just sit back and see what happens. But either way, I can't really do much. And what's going to happen is going to happen. And that's something that we kind of just have to be okay with. As far as if we have to go to the hospital, if something goes wrong, not saying even the extreme options, but
anyway, back on track again.
Find a doctor that you like, find nurses that you like.
Yes, we have switched doctors throughout our whole entire journey.
Not because the pregnancy had anything.
No.
But
just to find somebody more comfortable and more
modern.
Okay, modern, sure. Compassionate, I guess.
We switched to the doctor who actually delivered Elliot. He was the on-call doctor. We'll get to that. Libby was pregnant all winter, and Elliot was born in May, which some people say is the best way to do it, where you're pregnant during the cold times for Iowa versus the hot summer. And Libby's going to experience that this time, so she can maybe vouch for that here in 6 or 7 months. Libby was pregnant during COVID, and Libby was pregnant during our wedding. And you were what, 7 weeks?
I was 7 months pregnant at our wedding.
So,
which was not fun.
A week later, the world shuts down. COVID hits super hard, and
no, well, the world didn't shut down a week later. COVID kind of came to be more prevalent in the United States a week later after our wedding because schools didn't shut down until March 14th here.
That's 2 weeks after our wedding.
Oh, yeah.
We got married on Leap Day, 2020.
I'm losing my mind, guys.
So, okay, 2 weeks after our wedding, the world shuts down. And we just snuck our wedding in there. We had friends come from both coasts. We had family come from all over. And we got really lucky with that. So our wedding was kind of Libby's baby shower because
my baby shower got canceled.
Little did we know nothing would be able to happen for the next, 6 months. So we didn't get to see any family or friends. We didn't really get to see even the family that lived in town with us. And obviously
I pretty much
FaceTime and Zoom became king and the only way we could communicate or see anyone.
Yeah, I mean, my mom lives here, his mom and dad live here, and we barely even saw them. I don't think I left our house except for a couple ice cream runs and to just drive around for those 2 months waiting for Elliot, and it just seemed like forever and ever and ever.
Meanwhile, I still work in a public place, and I'm working 5 days a week, my normal shifts, because we were essential workers, and obviously retail was the main place people could go. Shopping for food and groceries was the main exception for going out in public. So kind of put a weird strain on everything because
I cried like every day when he left.
Literally, she did. And it was a very weird unknown time because everyone was unsure if you got it, are you going to die? Are you super contagious? Blah, blah, blah. And
well, the biggest thing was it didn't know how it affected pregnant people. Like, it was new. Nobody knew anything about it.
Yeah. And so we were wearing masks. We were doing all of that. And I'd come home and shower and change my clothes. And at the time, they thought it could live on surfaces for a long time. And people are scrubbing down their delivery orders with sanitizer wipes and all sorts of crazy stuff. But my job was nice enough to let me kind of scale back my hours a little bit. I think I was only working 4 days a week instead of 5 as we got very close to the end of the pregnancy because we didn't know how high the risk was. We didn't know what the risk was for me or her.
Well, and if I went in COVID positive, I would have had to deliver by myself.
Yes. So I think I was working 4 days a week for like the last 3 weeks of the pregnancy, maybe as we got close to our due date. Really, there was nothing spectacular until then. You had a couple false alarms where you weren't sure if you were contracting or not.
I think they were probably just Braxton Hicks, but I mean, again, first pregnancy, I had no idea what to expect really. I just remember it was like, it had to have been April like 26th, maybe. It was close to the due date. And I was having some contractions, which is normal. And I remember putting a poll on my Instagram asking people if they thought baby was going to come that weekend or if it was going to take longer. And everybody said that weekend. And of course it took another full week.
What was our actual due date? May 5th?
May 5th.
So the one time I remember, I know a couple times we had to go in to get checked, but one time we went because you hadn't felt the baby move for a little bit, which is apparently pretty common towards the end of the pregnancy, but there are higher risk factors at the end. And if something seems abnormal, you go to your doctor. So they hooked her up to this little, almost like a heart rate monitor for her, but also for the baby that she had to pretty much mark down anytime she felt the baby kick. And everything was fine. But this was only a week or two before we were due, I think.
Yeah.
So that was like the one close call we had. Now we'll get to the good stuff. May 3rd at 3 a.m, you woke up and you were having contractions. And I think you waited until like 4 a.m. to wake me up because you wanted to know if they were real or not. And granted, the day before, you were outside mowing the lawn, doing normal stuff that she probably shouldn't have been doing, being practically 40 weeks pregnant. And I think it was like 4:30 in the morning and we decided, you know what, we need to go to the hospital. And
we didn't go at 4:30. I woke you up at 4 and then we kept timing my contractions because they still weren't to the point where they were supposed to be before we could go to the hospital. And I think we ended up deciding we were going to go like around 6 in the morning.
I think it was earlier than that, but for the sake of the story, sure. So we get to the hospital and we go to ER.
Yeah, we had to go through the ER because of COVID protocols.
We had all of our bags and stuff in the car just in case. We were pretty much acting like this is it. If nothing else, this is our dress rehearsal.
Yeah, because you weren't allowed to leave the room once you were in it. So we had to bring anything that we wanted in with us then.
There were no visitors allowed. You could have one person, which in this case was obviously going to be me. And I think the rule was if you left, you could come back, but not until the next
It had to be
day.
24 hours.
No, it had to. You could only be there once in 24 hours. So if I left, they said stay as late as you can and come back as early the next morning.
Which is weird. I don't know why they would let you leave and come back.
It was just their policy. They moved us to the OB floor to be monitored by actual OB nurses, and they hooked her up to all the machines and whatnot. And they were talking to the on-call doctor who was not in for the day yet, which is why I think it was like 5 a.m. I think we were there earlier than you said. And everything.
I have this all written down in a baby book. I should have just pulled it out.
Well, they kind of were like, okay, everything seems okay, but you might be here a little too early, in which case normally we send you home so you can pretty much go into labor at home and then you can come back. And we were kind of like, you want us to leave to do the same thing that we're doing, which I understand. This is a hospital during COVID, during all this crazy stuff, and they don't want to deal with us if it's not time.
Yeah, so they decided that they would monitor for 1 more hour.
And then by that point, the doctor would be in for the day. So I assume it was 7 a.m.
I don't know. But during that hour, baby's heart rate dropped and my blood pressure skyrocketed.
Not drastically to the point where they wanted to keep her or anything.
And it was like the first time throughout my entire pregnancy that I had a high blood pressure thing.
I'm sure nerves were some of that. And the situation was obviously just a little bit tense. Plus we were tired and we just didn't know what to expect. Doctor comes in for the day. This is a Sunday, right?
I don't know.
I think it was a Sunday. I mean, it was the weekend. I think it was Sunday. And the doctor showed up. We had never met him. He was the new doctor in town, was not our doctor, which we were super nervous about at the time. As I previously mentioned, he is our current doctor because the experience was
10 out of 10.
He was a great doctor. And pretty much he came in and he said, you know what? you are 39 weeks pregnant. You're literally due in 2 days. Baby is healthy, but the heart rate did drop a little bit. Again, not even really to the point of being a concern, but he said, we might as well have you deliver the baby right now while everything is okay. So we're going to keep you and we're going to induce you. At that point, we were actually excited because we did not want to go home. We did not want to go through all this again. We just wanted to get it over with in a good way, not a, all right, let's just get this over with. So at this point, I think we got moved into our room at 8 a.m., as I remember.
Around there, yeah. Like it fully admitted.
Unfortunately, this was 6 weeks into COVID, and we were allowed to remove our masks once we were in the room, but the nurses and the doctors obviously had their mask and their face guards and all sorts of stuff. And a couple things I didn't know about delivery rooms. One, I didn't realize that the room that we're like hanging out in all day is the room that Libby was literally going to give birth to Elliot in. In the movies, you always see him like pushing him on a cart, like running down the halls and stuff to like a delivery room. I know that's the case for a C-section, but for some reason I just had it in my head that we were not doing it here. Like I didn't expect him to bring in tarps and a bucket, and literally the end of the table falls off and
end of the bed.
Yeah, sorry, not table. And blown away. The whole process, I've said this a couple times, as soon as Libby gave birth, and maybe it was even before that, I tweeted, my wife is a fucking superhero, because here I am sitting playing my Nintendo Switch. I was playing Animal Crossing, and if you play Animal Crossing, I was actually going to different people's islands to sell my turnips. If you don't know, you don't know. That sounds ridiculous, and it is. But I was just playing video games in the corner while Libby's...
and eating food.
While Libby's in pain and having all sorts of doctors' hands checking her out. And
oh, my gosh.
Another thing I wasn't prepared for. And the whole thing with the epidural and...
Well, okay, time out. You got to go back. So they got me hooked up to everything. Had to put an IV in case it was needed. Well, they do fluids regardless. But so they started that, and then they hooked me up to like the monitors to watch baby and watch me. But I don't know if it's because I'm plus size or what, but the monitors were not tracking the baby like they should. So they had to do an internal one, which was not fun.
And eventually fell off.
Yeah, no, the nurse yanked it out when she was dealing with a catheter. Yeah, all sorts of fun stuff. And then they gave me our OB broke my water. And then they started the Pitocin, right? Is that how you say it?
Sure.
I
don't know.
Anyways, they started that, and I felt so good. I was like sitting up in bed, filling out all the paperwork, and they're like, people don't normally do this until like before they leave.
There's a hole in my shirt.
Okay, irrelevant. And I was just up feeling good doing that. And then it started to kick in.
One of the things Libby had mentioned that she was not prepared for is the pressure that you feel. Not external mental pressure, but the physical pressure of baby moving to its delivery.
Dropping.
Yes, to its delivery position. And that's not something that the epidural can help with. And that was something that the doctors kept saying was, you have to be able to feel something. This isn't going to take away all the pain, or it'll take away pain, but it won't take away pressure. And
regardless, I don't think my epidural did not work. I was able to. I got the epidural probably when I was like
noon,
4 or 5 centimeters.
Yeah, I think it was like noon.
I don't know. And I had a ways to go. And so I got the epidural, and that was a process in and of itself. I had no idea what to expect. Like I said, we were doing this during COVID, so we didn't get to go to any classes or anything like that. I mean, we literally had no idea what to expect. And I thought I asked all the questions I needed to, but I obviously did not. So got the epidural. Felt good for probably an hour, 2 hours-ish.
Yeah.
Able to get a little bit of rest. And then I swear the whole thing wore off. They kept coming in and like trying to dial it up more. And they're like, it's maxed out. I'm like, I can literally turn myself in bed. I can feel every part of my legs. I can kick. I could do everything that you're not supposed to be able to do, I guess.
We were the only people on the floor at this point, and I think they had 2 more by the time we were leaving, or 3 more, but We had all the nurses that we wanted. Everyone was great until they had their shift change, and we got new nurses that Libby did not like. They were
Just
nice.
one.
They were nice. They were doing what they're supposed to, but it was just the matter of switching hands. And
well, and obviously I'm like, I don't know, they call it transition. Maybe I'm going from like an 8 to a 9 to a 10, like in a matter of an hour.
It was ramping up, and this would have been 6 p.m. And so we're only a couple hours away from the finale. And we're in like episode 9 with one episode to go. And
the pressure I felt, it wasn't even like stomach or back, my legs. I just kept yelling at Christian to get over here and massage the back of my legs. I just wanted to chop them off. They hurt so bad. The pressure that just kept like throbbing down them.
We're taking our massage gun next time.
Yeah, it was horrible. And I wanted so badly to just like switch positions or like get on my hands and knees. Like, but I was oblivious, naive. Maybe I like felt weird asking. I don't know. But now I know going into it this time around, I know what I want. I know like this is for me. I need to do what I want to feel better, I guess. I don't know. I just laid on my back the whole time and it was horrible.
Well, you were going from probably a 7 to a 10 really fast because at that point, everything was full force. The medicine for you to be induced was obviously doing its job.
And I just remember yelling that I can't not push. I can't not push.
I forgot about that. Libby literally thought she was going to push to the point that she was going to poop or that she was going to deliver the baby before she was supposed to.
And the nurses kept telling me, no, you can't push. You can't push because I'd like, what did they tell me? And it scared the shit out of me. What was going to happen?
Yeah, I don't even remember.
If it was too early and I pushed, I would bleed out or something. I don't remember.
And so then Libby's sitting there panicking and the doctor comes in.
I was shaking.
After 40 minutes of her saying, I want to talk to the doctor. And she's like, I can't not push. And
yeah, because the last time.
She's like, the nurses said I was going to bleed out and die. And
yeah, because the last time they came in, I was like an 8.5 and you need to be a 10 before you push. And I'm like, no, I can't not push. Like my body just knew it was time. And I kept trying to tell them that.
I just remember you now going, Rah! Like, I can't not push.
Oh, so then the doctor finally comes in. He's like, you're between a 9.5 and a 10. So let's just do it. I'm like, oh shit. Okay.
I think he, at that point, was able to.
Like it was soft enough and it was
I don't want to make this sound gross,
yeah.
but I think he was able to clear the way enough to pretty much make you a 10.
Yeah.
And at that point, again, here I am trying to play Animal Crossing and not throw up. And
the whole time, Christian.
I'm at the end of the bed. Yeah,
he was at the end of the bed. I'm like, dude, you picked the wrong spot in this room.
Yeah, I did. I definitely picked the wrong spot.
Yeah, so then they like drop the bot like
the end of the
of the bed. Good Lord.
And they pull up the things for her feet, and
but
here I am holding one leg. The nurse is holding the other.
Another thing about this is that I did not know like I had to hold my own legs.
I think that's more of a.
I don't know, but I always thought like your partner and a nurse like held your legs up and they're like, no, we don't do that. You need to hold them yourself.
I still held your leg, but I think it's more to have you have something
or like I had to pull myself
energy
into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't expect there to be actual tarps. I didn't expect there to be a 5-gallon bucket.
I have no idea what was going on down there.
Long story short, to spare all the gruesome details of this, everything went well.
Yeah, I pushed for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, which is short, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. And overall, you were in labor for about 14 or 15 hours.
Well, from when we got to the hospital. If we counted like when things started at home, it'd obviously be longer. Extra. But active labor, yeah.
And Elliot was born at 9:45 p.m. And was 6 pounds, 8.7 ounces, 18.75 inches long. And I remember coming up with something witty because May Day is obviously May 1st and May 5th is Cinco de Mayo. And so I remember our announcement on Facebook and Instagram was somewhere between a May basket and a margarita.
Your announcement.
And was saying something like, Elliot was born, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's doing well. And because of COVID, they wouldn't take the babies to the nursery because they didn't have the staff there. And it was a safety thing. So
I just remember everybody telling us to take advantage of that.
And we were not
Let
able
them
to.
take the baby so we could sleep and rest, but we weren't able to.
One thing that also surprised me was 9:45, you give birth to the baby. They do the cleanup and the stitches and whatever aftercare that the doctor is doing to help, get rid of the placenta and all that fun stuff.
Pushing on your stomach.
Yeah. And by like 11 o'clock, they're taking out the epidural and you're walking around.
I was. Yeah. A lot of people aren't by then.
So in a matter of an hour and a half, you deliver a baby and you're walking around.
And then at midnight, we were eating Jimmy John's.
Yep. Watching TV. And it was kind of a weird way to just be thrown into parenthood because, again, there was no, all right, we're going to take the baby, whatever, so you guys can rest. It was the baby's here. Mm-hmm. They came in to check the things every couple hours.
Yeah, and then they did like her hearing and all those type of tests. And then she ended up being jaundiced, but we didn't really know it until after we left the hospital. We ended up staying that night and then another night, and then we left like after lunch the following day on the 5th, her actual due date. They told us we didn't have to stay, but I was like, no, we're staying, just because I was nervous and all that good stuff to bring her home. But I mean, overall, I feel very lucky. It was a very easy delivery. I feel like now, like almost 2 years later, looking back, I think the hardest part and the scariest part and like the most painful part was because I didn't know what to expect. I think now, like, I'm actually excited to give birth now just because I know how to like advocate for myself, and like I've been doing a lot of different reading and courses and
watching
just learning
TikTok.
Not necessarily, but like learning from other people and stuff like that. And I'll probably take a class, maybe, I don't know, this time. But I don't know if things will be different this time or not, just because we've had some complications. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think that's probably a good way to wrap this episode up. Anyone listening, if you have questions, this is a more lighthearted conversation than the last episode dealing with our struggles to get pregnant the second time. But if you have questions about the things Libby went through or the things that I didn't expect, or
Christian can talk all day about his perspective.
It was so educational, if nothing else. And I talked about that with my brother and one of our friends on his podcast. We did a whole episode about what to expect as a father for the first time and everything that you just have no idea. We don't learn about this in school. They take the girls to a separate room to talk about this part, and they talk to the guys about other stuff. They don't
really talk to us about it either.
I mean, that's fair. You have to watch the video of the kid being delivered.
That's it, basically.
There's a lot
more.
Scare
tactic.
They should show you all the stuff that happens before that because it's something. If you have questions about any of this, or if you want to know something more specifically, comment below on this YouTube video. If you're listening to us, comment on our Instagram post or send us a message, and we'd be happy to answer the questions or get more in depth on a certain part of this. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and social media. That is linked below. Got anything else?
Nope. I think that sums it up.
We should have brought Elliot in for this last part.
She's sleeping. You can look at her on the monitor. There she is. She was grouchy this morning, so we put her down early. Anyway, that's all we got. Until next time.